Elliot Kohler asks on YouTube here, what is your favorite porn star? What is your favorite? I think it's who is your favorite porn star? I don't have a favorite. I don't have like a go-to. But as everybody who listens to the show knows, and I've spoken about this on various Kyle and Corin episodes, you can go back and watch those from back in the day, but my general category is big ass. I like women with big asses. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Gotta have hips, gotta have ass. That's it. I'm an ass man 1,000 times more than I'm a tit man. I mean, having big tits, nice, great. Hey, let's have fun. But if there were no tits and there's an ass, still fine. If it's vice versa, no ass and tits, not even remotely interested. So it all comes down to the ass for me. El Mariachi on YouTube. What's your current association with Cenk Uygur? How much do you interact with each other, and how much do you think you agree with one another? So I'm part of TYT Network. I've been for years. Cenk and I interact quite a bit for Justice Democrats because we are two co-founders. It was me, Cenk. We really came up with the idea, and then we teamed up with other people who were thinking about doing something like this. Those people being Zach Exley and Shoykat Chakrabarti. They are former top Bernie Sanders campaign officials. So it was a match made in heaven because, you know, him and I have strong ideas on how to make the Democratic Party succeed and just how to get progressive policies implemented, how to get populist left ideas implemented. But we don't have the time, and it's just not what we do to really lay the groundwork and lay the infrastructure and do the hard work to actually carry it out and get the people elected and run the campaigns and do all the organizing. So that's why it just, again, match made in heaven, because we teamed up with Bernie Sanders campaign officials who agree with us on all the issues, who are like, let's do this thing. So we talk maybe once a week or every other week sometimes for issues regarding Justice Democrats. And in terms of areas where I disagree with Cenk and other TYT hosts, there's a number of issues, man, but that's fine. I mean, I'm supposed to agree with everybody. I'm supposed to agree with everything they say, and they're supposed to agree with everything I say. No, not at all. There's some vehement disagreement. Of course, we disagree massively on the Russia issue, and I haven't really spoken about that with him because we've just been dealing with other stuff, Justice Democrats related, but we disagree on the Russia issue. I know that we disagree on taxes to an extent. I've always said that when it comes to middle-class people and poorer people, I've never seen a tax cut I don't like. I know he was in favor of getting rid of all of the Bush tax cuts, which means even the tax cuts for the middle class and the poor. So I think he would like a higher rate on middle-class people than I would, so I'm more in the camp of tax cuts for middle-class people than he is. I think we disagree on free trade, although I think he's come around more to my side over the years. He used to be fine with free trade and say, like, I don't know what the alternative is, basically, was his argument. If we're not going to trade with them, what are we going to do? I'm much more protectionist. I love the idea of tariffs. I love the idea of crafting laws that make corporations keep jobs in the U.S. and not outsource them. I don't think he's 100% in agreement with me there. We also disagree pretty strongly on foreign policy. I'm a rather committed non-interventionist, whereas he is, I think he's referred to himself as a mild interventionist, which means every now and then he's fine with sending U.S. troops to unilaterally do some sort of mission. I'm much more in favor of doing nothing unless we're directly threatened. Like, for self-defense, sure, let's do military action, but outside of that, only, international action if we do it with other nations to stop a genocide or something. I don't like U.S. military action unilaterally unless we're directly threatened. I think in some cases he's okay with that. And I don't know. I think on social issues, I'm a little more libertarian too. So I'm a libertarian leftist, and on social issues, I'm live and let live, legalize all drugs, you do whatever the fuck you want. I think we agree overall on 90% of stuff. So yeah, it's it's been a partnership that's been beneficial for both of us, despite some of our disagreements and some of our vehement disagreements. Okay. What are your thoughts on universal basic income? So there's another one that, this is Feel the Perm asks this question. I love that name. Yeah, I've spoken about this before. I'm a bigger fan of a negative income tax. So, in other words, if somebody's poor or middle class, they should basically get something that's like a universal basic income. So they net receive money from the government. Don't even necessarily, if you're poor, you should net receive money from the federal government. You don't pay money because you can't afford to pay money. And you should be able to live a decent life with the bare minimum as opposed to, being on the street, starving and homeless or whatever. Universal basic income, I don't know how feasible it is. I just don't know how feasible it is. So I'm not against it. I just don't know how feasible it is. If somebody could show me and demonstrate to me, no, it'll work out totally fine, well then, sure, maybe I'd support it, but I like a negative income tax because it gets the money to the people who need the money. Like, with a universal basic income, why the fuck should we have like a lump sum that goes to Paris Hilton or Donald Trump or Bill Gates or... Yeah, it's a universal system. Everybody, net receives money. Like, everybody gets a Social Security check, basically, is the idea. And I just don't like the idea of mega rich people getting that because they don't need it. So I think it's inefficient. And I think it's, kind of a broad way to attack a problem as opposed to, again, I like it where you have a very progressive tax rate with a lot of brackets. And at the lower end, there's a negative tax rate. So if you're poor, you are getting money and you're getting a decent amount of money so that you can be okay. But if you're rich, no, I don't want to give you money. I don't want to give people in the top 1% money. I don't think they should have this universal basic income because they don't need that money. So what the fuck are we talking about here? Somebody asks, will you ever debate a conservative in the near future at events like Politicon or such? That's another good question. So, and this was the number one question, by the way. People asking, when are you going to debate Ben Shapiro? When are you going to debate Steven Crowder? And, fill in the blank with whoever their favorite conservative might be. And the answer to this is, at this point, I'm actually torn. There was a time where I wasn't torn, but now I'm torn on it. So, on the one hand, the thought of putting my ideas up against a conservative's ideas, somebody like Ben Shapiro or whoever, I like that. I like the idea of sitting across from them and going back and forth and letting the audience decide who did a better job and who presented their ideas better and who they think is right. I do like that idea. But on the other hand, and this is what I've always been struggling with when people ask this question, I might be doing a disservice to the audience by doing that because it's setting up this false equivalence. So, and what I mean by that is, if you go back and look at Bill Nye versus Ken Ham, for example, Bill Nye is talking about things that are just like, duh. And Ken Ham is this creationist who's a lunatic who's saying things that have been debunked 1,000 times over. But since it's a debate, it's being presented as a 50-50 proposition where it's like, hey, it's an open question and let's debate these things. But aren't you doing a disservice when it's not an open question anymore? To debate it and present it like it is an open question. So, for example, climate change. It's not an open question. It's happening and it's largely man-made, okay? So when you have on CNN somebody saying climate change is happening and somebody saying climate change isn't happening, that does a disservice to the debate because it's a false equivalency, because it's leaving the impression that, I don't know, it's equally valid, you pick a side. That is horrible. That's not... It's like saying, again, evolution versus creationism. We have the answer. So why are you debating it? Oh, I don't know what the answer is. So I do think that does a disservice when if you have somebody like me and then you have somebody like Ben Shapiro and we're debating the issue of healthcare and I'm up there saying, hey, every other modern nation has one version or another of a single payer system. When you look at the rankings of the healthcare systems throughout the world, the top 10 is virtually all single-payer systems. The U.S. does shitty. We're the worst of the developed nations, whether you look at the World Health Organization study or other subsequent studies that have been done. This isn't a debate anymore. And then you have guys like Ben Shapiro who's like, expensive furniture is like healthcare. Remember that tweet that I mock all the time about, he compares people getting healthcare when they're sick to not being able to afford expensive furniture. I think I'm doing a disservice to the audience when I'm up there and I'm pretending like this is a debatable topic. So in other words, in a situation like that, debate is not merited. Fact-checking is merited. Where you go, okay, this guy's wrong, and here's why the fuck he's wrong. So that's why I'm torn on this. And also, I only would debate somebody who I think is real and not playing a character. And I don't know about guys like Milo and Steven Crowder. Are they genuine? Are they legit? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. If Steven Crowder says Hitler was a liberal, and there are people who have a hard-on for me to debate him, what on earth is going to be accomplished by me debating a guy who says Hitler was a liberal? He also, by the way, says, to this day, climate change is a liberal hoax. He also believes in a zombie Jewish carpenter who walked on water. Like, these are all things that are so preposterous that wouldn't it be a disservice to go out there and debate this guy and give the misimpression to the audience, hey, we're talking about issues that are up in the air. They're not up in the fucking air. It's not a question as to whether or not Hitler was a liberal. You know who says Hitler was a liberal? The dumbest motherfuckers on the planet, or liars. Liars who are playing a fucking character, who are being Mr. Conservatism. So he's either the biggest idiot on the planet or he's a liar. If you're saying Hitler was a liberal, so I don't know. That's what I struggle with. I struggle with lending credence to people who are frauds or con artists, or liars like that. I struggle with that. I struggle with presenting it as some sort of false equivalence when in reality these people need to be fact-checked, not debated. But then I also struggle with the fact that they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They're out there, their audiences are growing, and they also get to spin a situation where a guy like me doesn't debate them. They get to spin it as, oh, he's weak and he doesn't think his ideas will hold up, and they get to play the fake macho man game. So, I don't know. I used to say, no, I'm not going to debate them because I don't trust them. I don't think they're real. I think they're playing characters. I think it does a disservice to the audience. But now I'm at the point where they're getting stronger and stronger. Their audiences are getting bigger and bigger. They're still saying the ridiculous shit that they've been saying all along. They're not going anywhere, so whatever. Even if it is, presenting a false equivalence to the audience, pretending things are debatable that aren't debatable, even if I'm debating somebody who's basically playing a character, whatever, fuck it. Let's just do it anyway, just to get it over with and to get people off our ass about it. Okay. Oh, and just one more point about that. I distinctly remember watching a few years back a video of Noam Chomsky when he agreed to debate some, pro-Israeli Zionist lunatic, honestly. And the debate was just that guy shouting down Noam Chomsky for like an hour and a half. And I watched it and I went, I just learned a lesson here. Don't go against people like that because nothing came out of it. Chomsky's right about all, and he's a serious intellectual, and he's debating this fucking clown who's quite literally an ethnic cleansing apologist as he is smearing Noam Chomsky and acting like Noam Chomsky's anti-Semitic. And what did Noam accomplish? And if I'm not mistaken, I think Noam, after that debate, was like, you know what? I'm not doing this fake politics shit anymore where you pretend like it's 50-50 and you have a debate when guys like this are smear merchants. So that was another reason why I'm always hesitant to talk to people like that, because I don't think they're serious. And I think it does a disservice to you guys.